Hey everyone, it's Kenji, and I'm going to show you how to boil eggs. And I mean boil them in a way that they can be peeled. And when I say I'm going to show you this, I know a lot of people say, here's this foolproof method for doing it. Every one of them is lying. There's no such thing as a foolproof method. You're always going to have eggs that stick, the shells that stick, no matter what method you use. But I can say with confidence that nobody has done more tests on this than I have, and this is the technique I use that has the best results. And I'm not just saying that, I actually have like the data to back it up. I'll show you what I'm doing and then I'll explain how I got to this result. All right, so I got some water in a saucepan. I usually do it in my wok, but my wok has some oil in it right now. The reason I like to use a wok is because you can gently put the eggs in down the sloped side and they kind of roll into the bottom instead of having to kind of drop them in and risk cracking them. But anyhow, a saucepan or a wok, whatever vessel you have with a lid, a little bit of water, doesn't even have to cover the eggs. You just want enough in there that it'll steam continuously over the cooking time. So an inch or so of water, already boiling, and I'm just gonna lower my eggs in. These are straight from the fridge because realistically, whoever plans, who thinks to themselves, I want a hard-boiled egg, and then pulls their egg out from the fridge and waits half an hour for their egg to come up to room temperature. But anyhow, this method will work for as many eggs as you can fit in a single layer in your pan, or if you've got a real powerful burner, like at a restaurant, for instance, you could fit more than one row of eggs. But I'm gonna do one row of eggs here, get it in there, keep it at a boil, cover it up, and now I'm just gonna set a timer. Hey Siri, set a timer for 9 minutes.
9 minutes, starting now.
All right, so 9 minutes will give you like a nice hard-boiled egg where the yolk is still kind of golden. 11, 12 minutes will get you one where the yolk is a little bit more pale yellow and chalkier. Something like 6 minutes will give you a medium, like a sort of fudgy egg, and something like 3 or 4 minutes will get you a soft-boiled egg. So when I used to work as a cook, a lunch cook at a restaurant, one of my very first restaurant jobs, we had I remember we had a dish where it was asparagus with a soft cooked egg, a 3-minute boiled egg that had to be peeled. And my job was to boil the eggs and peel them. And peeling a 3-minute egg is really a pain in the butt, especially if the shells start to stick. And I had a success rate of maybe, I don't know, maybe 50% if I was lucky, because they had to be perfect. And so that was when I sort of started thinking, all right, like, what's the best way to really cook an egg so that the shell doesn't stick? And I always just thought it was sort of luck of the draw. And then, several years later when I was working at Serious Eats, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start testing this. So I tested a number of different methods. I did things, like adding vinegar to the water, salting the water, starting the eggs in cold water and bringing it up, starting them in boiling water, all the different things you could think of. And what I found was that when I got a panel of people together to come, everyone who worked at Serious Eats at the time, so it was probably like, I think 8 to 10 people, we sat around, cooked eggs up. I cooked eggs a bunch of ways, and then they peeled them and reported how easy and difficult they were to peel. I also sort of examined them to see how well they peeled. And what I discovered was the thing that makes the most difference by far is not the age of the egg. In fact, the age of the egg doesn't really matter that much, despite what you've read and despite even what I may have written in the past. The age of the egg doesn't actually matter that much. What really matters is whether you start them in already boiling water or you bring them up from cold. If you put them in cold water, heat it up and bring it up, the egg whites will actually fuse to the shell. That membrane on the shell becomes much more difficult to peel. You lower them into already boiling water, on the other hand, and the egg whites set up fast enough that they don't actually fuse to that shell, and they peel much more easily. A few years after that, this was just a couple years ago now, when I was, I had my restaurant Worst Hall in San Mateo, and deviled eggs have been on the menu since day one of the most popular dishes there. And so we would boil, 100, 200 eggs every single day. And what I decided to do was when I had my New York Times column, well, I still have my New York Times column, but one of my New York Times columns, I thought, all right, I'm gonna repeat some of those tests I did for Serious Eats, but I'm just gonna get as much data as possible. So I got volunteers, people from the public, over 100 people, to come to the restaurant, peel eggs blind. So they didn't know how the eggs were cooked, they didn't know what method I used to cook them, they didn't know how old the eggs were, anything like that. So I had each person peel a dozen eggs that were cooked in various methods. And then I had them both rank how easy it was to peel. So there was different sets of data. I had them subjectively rank how easy the eggs were to peel on a scale from 1 to 10. I examined every egg to see how many flaws it had. So I counted both sort of minor flaws, little divots in it, and also sort of major flaws like cracks and big divots. And then I also timed how long it took people to peel each egg on average. And collecting all that data, I came to the exact same conclusion. The thing that matters most is whether the egg starts in hot water or whether it starts in cold water. So starting your egg in hot water, again, there's no 100% guarantee that every single egg is going to peel perfectly, but in those tests, we ended up with around, people who have peeled lots of eggs in their life, people who never peeled eggs before in their life. On average, people were able to get about a 80% or so success rate, as opposed to sort of like a 50 to 60% success rate using other cooking methods. And by success, I mean having an egg that peels easily and perfectly with no blemishes. The shell comes off, and you have that entire white, makes it perfect for a deviled egg or whatever. So yeah. That is that. The only other thing that you really want to consider when you're boiling eggs is that some eggs, I happen to know, I get these eggs, or I get the ones from the brand called Happy Egg from my local Safeway. I know that these eggs have particularly thick, hard shells, and it's very unlikely that they're going to break while they're boiling. In some places, in some brands of eggs, in some regions of the world, you're going to find eggs with slightly thinner shells, and those do run the risk that the pressure inside is going to build up and cause the eggshell to crack while they're boiling. If that seems to happen to you a lot, what you can do is you can take a thumbtack and just prick a little hole in the back, in the fat end of the egg, and that will give back there's an airspace and that's what causes the eggshell to crack, is that airspace expanding. So if you prick a little hole in there, it gives room for the air to escape, and so you relieve pressure inside there, kind of like pulling a cork out of a champagne bottle. It relieves pressure, and so your eggshell won't crack if you do that. The other advantage of that is that if you don't do that, what you end up with is sometimes that airspace will leave a sort of indentation on the back of the egg. I'm sure you've seen that before. The fat end of the egg has a slight indentation that's caused by that airspace. So it'll eliminate that as well if you're concerned about that appearance-wise. That airspace, by the way, is one of the few things that will change with the age of the egg. So that eggshells are porous, and so as eggs get older, they lose moisture, and so that airspace actually gets bigger. So the older your egg, the bigger that airspace is going to be, and the bigger that sort of indentation on the back of a boiled egg is going to be. People do say that the age of the egg is going to make a difference. This is not true. So I've done this test both with eggs that were 60 days old. I know they were 60 days old because I got them from my neighbor's hens. And I compared those to eggs that were literally still warm from the chicken, laid that day. Same hens, same eggs, same neighbor. So the exact same eggs, and I did a half dozen of each. And the age of the egg really made no difference in how easily the egg peeled. The time when the age of an egg does make a difference is if you're doing something like frying an egg or poaching an egg, because as the egg gets older, the membrane around the egg white and around the egg yolk will start to loosen. And so if you want a really perfect, nice, tall fried egg or a really tight poached egg, using as fresh an egg as possible is going to help in that regard. But for boiled eggs, it really makes no difference. Okay, so I'm going to let this go until the timer goes off, and then I will show you how easy they are to peel. All right, so I'll be back in about a minute. Has gone by, I guess because I was blabbing so much I didn't realize that we're almost done with our 9-minute timer. All right, so these eggs are getting ready to come out. You'll notice I don't have an ice bath. I actually prefer to just let my eggs cool down naturally. I find it doesn't make a huge difference, but it actually makes them just a teeny bit easier to peel. If you want your eggs chilled really fast because you're going to store them or because you're going to make egg salad immediately, something like that, you can definitely go ahead and just drop them in an ice bath. But I'm going to let them sit here and then let them cool down naturally as soon as they're done. As for the temperature, by the way, the temperature of the boiling... Hey Siri, stop. The temperature of the boiling water, the heat underneath it, you want it just enough to basically maintain, at the very minimum, like a heavy simmer or a very light boil. You don't need it to be going like full blast the entire time. The one thing you want to make sure that doesn't happen though is that you don't want the eggs to the water to completely evaporate away while the eggs are boiling, because that could be a little bit of a disaster. And before anyone mentions it, yes, I've tried that method where you put the eggs in a muffin tin and bake them in the oven. It is not a good way to do your eggs. It makes them very difficult to peel, and it also sort of gives them this weird, well, baked flavor. It's just not very good. All right, so just to show you, I'm gonna peel this one egg. And chances are this is gonna be, you know, one of those 2 out of the 10 that aren't gonna peel very well, but maybe it'll peel perfectly. But knowing how video works, especially unedited live video, it's gonna be one of those eggs. So cool enough just to handle. The way I do my eggs, I crack them a little on the fat end, crack them a little on the top end, and then I give them a little gentle roll like that, okay? Then the peel should just come. Look at that. So you see how easy that is? Perfectly peeled. And you can see there's a little bit of a divot here from where that little indentation there from where that airspace is. But you saw how easy that peels? That is something that if you are a cook and you make lots of deviled eggs, you're really gonna appreciate that, I can tell you that. I wish I had known this when I was a younger cook. All right, I'm gonna cut it in half just to show you what a 9-minute egg looks like. Okay, so pretty much hard boiled, but still pretty golden on the inside. So if I let this go for another 2 minutes longer, then the whole egg would have been sort of this pale yellow color. But there you go. That is a perfectly peeled, boiled egg. And the rest of those I'm gonna let cool down because we're having egg salad sandwiches for lunch. Shabu hamon. Sit. Oh, you don't need to sit. I don't know where Shabu is. She's probably upstairs. All right, guys, gals, non-binary pals, I will see you next time. Bye-bye.